So I'm going to do a couple short videos on how I have used Vim and LaTeX to write papers. This video is going to be focused on setting up how I get a document ready to put together. I'm using Vim just in the command line. Um, if you're a beginner, Overleaf might be a better option. And so you can look into that, overleaf.com. Has everything there for you. You don't have to install anything. It's an online editor. But it can get you started to begin with. But let me show you how I set up my file. So there's actually in LaTeX a class called Turabian Research Paper. This does a lot of the work for you if you have that set up properly. You can also use other classes and organize it yourself, but I find Turabian Research Paper to be the one that's best. Personally, I also use a couple of different fonts. Libertinus is good. Another one that I use is FBB. If you want something that's basically Times New Roman, then Times is close enough. But I like Libertinus. You're also going to want to set the margins correctly. So for that we use the geometry package. So I use 1-inch margins all around. Pretty simple. You can adjust that however you want to do for that. Now in my field, I often have to use Greek and Hebrew, and so I actually use those in different ways. For Hebrew, I use a package called CJ Hebrew. You can look up the manual on that. The idea on that is that instead of writing with Hebrew letters, because it's kind of difficult to do generally, but also certainly in Vim it's difficult to do, but what you can do is it's coded, so you can actually write something like that, and this pulls up with my Zithera backwards. I don't believe that's a word, but if we zoom in on that, there it is. It produces something like that with regular letters, and so it's coded in a way through CJ Hebrew. There's a chart on the CJ Hebrew manual to do that if that's something that you are interested in. But I do that for Hebrew. For Greek, I use this package, Babel, and Greek English. And so if you want to put in Greek characters, my Greek keyboard's not working right this second, but you put text Greek and you put in whatever you want to put for that, and it produces it just fine there. Citations, this is the main thing that I think is most useful on LaTeX to do citations. And so I'll do another video on how this is hooked up with Zotero and pulls my citations from there. But what you do is there's lots of different ways you can handle this. I use Bibber as my backend. There's other settings you can do too and put them in these brackets. So one that I often use is ISBN is false, so that won't print the ISBN. You can take various things out there. But I use the package Bibliotech Chicago, and it produces Chicago citations. And you can make some adjustments there to make it Turabian style. But Turabian is essentially modified Chicago, so that gets me a long way there. And you also have to run this command, add bib resource. That's one big document. Like I said, I'll do another video talking about that. That's one big document with essentially every book I've ever read or owned, and the citation information for that. And so that's about all you need for setting up commands and things. Of course, you'll do title, so author, of course, date, which I won't leave a date there. If you leave the date blank, then it just does, to run this make title command, put the title page there. If you leave that blank, it just does the current date. So today's August 15th, or you could put any particular date you want to put in there. So you can change that however you want, and it'll print that as the date. You can also do in this particular in this particular document class, you can put a course. So that will go there in your page, and then normally I need to put a professor or something like that, and so you can do that in submission info. So you can either normally I just have to put one line there, but you can also do multiple lines and just separate them with a line break. And it puts all that information there in a nice title page, prepped and ready to go. Everything is properly organized for you. Of course, you also have to remember your basic commands. So you've got section, subsection. I've actually got shortcuts for these. Subsection, you can keep going through all these. And that prints like that. So sorry, I have also a folding set up here. So if you wanted to do a citation, then it's fairly easy. With this package, I use AutoCite, which does whatever's correct for everything else that's going on. So in this case, it'll do a footnote. You can do a page number here. I have a command that prints these for me, although you can just look up the command. So if you want to do plumber 1975, you do that. You do have to run Bibber outside of this. I have it set up where I can just save again, and it prints what I want to print there. So that makes it very easy. You turn off what you don't want, so I turned off ISBN, but I can also turn off URL, and that makes that go away as well. So you just have the information there. The citations are the best thing about this. The citations make it very, very easy to work through. You just have to know the cite key for each one, and it automatically formats it. As long as everything's right in your citations file or in Zotero, then it's good to go. At the very end, you do, let's see if I can remember this command, you do have to say print bibliography, I believe. I think I'm right about that. And that will print, and obviously on a separate page, but that prints, and they're all in alphabetical order and ready to go. So it's a very simple process. There's a couple of different plugins that I use for Vim to make this easy. You have to set up your Vim however you normally would set it up, whatever is best for you. I've got lots of things going on in Vim, but you don't need all that. If you're not familiar with this process, then Overleaf is a good place to start because it'll walk you through. It'll tell you exactly what's wrong. I believe it actually has a Vim mode if you like to use Vim keys. But this should be enough to get you started just at the very beginning. Like I said, I'll make another video about citations and how I do that. But this is the simple way that I start putting together a paper with LaTeX and with Vim. Okay, so a couple more thoughts that I probably should have said earlier, and I just realized that I didn't mention it. When you are writing, my general practice is to put each sentence on its own line. The reason for that is that it's easier to navigate with Vim. As you're going up and down, you're moving between sentences, and so if you did one big paragraph, you'd have to be tracking through the paragraph to find it. So I do one sentence per line, and then obviously just a line break between just do this. Line break between the paragraphs. That makes it easier to navigate if you're using Vim. You see it does the paragraph break for you. Well, let's make that longer so you can see how it works. It goes through just like it's supposed to, and it does all the indentation correctly and things like that. If you want to put a quote in, so if we put a quote, let's just do it in the middle of this. This would be a block quote. If you're going to do a shorter quote, you just put it in line. But for a block quote, we'll do it like this. And you can see that it sets it up properly in context. It kicks it out and does a hanging indent. So So I can make that wrap the line. Yeah, so it does a hanging indent single space. You can do that. Italics are text IT. Bold is text VF. You can also do small caps, which in my field, because I'm typing Lord small caps all the time, is actually quite helpful. Those are some of the basics. You can also do a footnote. So if I do a footnote and say this is a footnote, you'll see it. Well, I've got several citations of Plummer there. You can see that it formats correctly, but if I do a footnote, and then I want to put a citation at the end of the footnote, I'll run cite, and then we'll just do Plummer again here. And it should format correctly there. So that doesn't do the footnote or anything, it's just a simple citation. So if I have a comment on something, if I can spell footnote right, if I have a comment on something and then I'm citing something as well, then that's one way to do that. In addition, it organizes those all nice and neat. But you can see how this plays out. Those are your basic commands. Obviously, you can do anything. You can underline, you can highlight, you can do all sorts of interesting things with this, but these tend to be the things that I stick to when I'm writing here. You can add images and do charts and whatnot. It gets more complex when you start doing that, but if you're simply writing, then this should get you started.